I signed the consent form because it promised three things: hazard pay, minimal risk, and a private room. In my experience, any document that goes out of its way to promise privacy is lying in at least one interesting way. Still, I'd spent 6 months on a station where the highlight of my week was arguing with a vending unit about whether synthetic cheese counted as dairy, so my standards were flexible. They called it a containment compatibility assessment. That alone should have tipped me off. The chamber sealed with a sound that felt more final than necessary, like someone closing a vault because they didn't trust the universe not to steal what was inside. The room wasn't large. One heat panel, one low bed, one hygiene alcove, one table bolted to the floor. No restraints, no observation window. Just smooth walls and a faint hum that suggested very expensive equipment quietly judging my life choices. Then she stepped out from behind the divider. She was smaller than I expected, wrapped in a loose research garment that tried very hard to look non-threatening and failed purely by being unnecessary. Fox-like ears twitched atop her head for a soft rust color that shifted under the lights. Her tail was expressive. That was the most neutral word I could find for something that stiffened, curled, and fluffed all at once, like it was receiving too much information at the same time.
She froze when she saw me.
I raised one hand slowly, palm out. Not because a protocol told me to, but because that's what you do when you don't want to startle anyone who looks like they might bolt through a wall if startled.
"Hi," I said.
I'm a signed human, I guess. Her pupils widened. Her breathing hitched. She didn't move closer. She didn't move away either. She just stood there, staring at my chest like it had personally offended her ancestors. The silence stretched. I waited. Humans are very good at waiting when we don't know what else to do. It's a survival trait developed from elevators, customer service lines, and family dinners where someone brings up politics. Eventually, she spoke, voice tight and precise, like each word had to be approved internally before release. "You are unrestrained." "Yeah," I said. "They didn't even give me a helmet." "Feels optimistic." Her ears flicked. I wasn't sure what that meant, but it felt like a reaction, so I counted it as progress. "I am designated feral," she said. "Oh." I nodded. "I'm designated temporary contractor. We all have labels." That was the wrong thing to say, judging by the way her tail lashed once, sharp enough to make the air hiss. She took a step back, then another, until her shoulders brushed the wall. I noticed the temperature drop then. Not enough to be dangerous, but enough to be uncomfortable. The heat panel was on, but it was calibrated for something smaller, furred, and clearly not designed for a hairless primate with questionable circulation. She shivered. "Hey," I said, keeping my voice calm. "You okay?" Her response was immediate and very much not okay. She folded inward, arms wrapping around herself, ears flattening. A low sound escaped her throat, not loud, not aggressive, more like a system error noise. I checked the wall for controls. Nothing accessible. Of course. "All right," I muttered. Problem-solving time. I shrugged off my outer jacket and held it out, slow and deliberate. "This helps. It's warm. No strings attached. I promise." Her eyes flicked from the jacket to me, then back again. Whatever internal debate she was having, it looked intense. Finally, she shook her head, small and sharp. "Proximity violation," she said. "Unacceptable." "Got it," I said. "No proximity. But also you're cold, and that's objectively bad. So let's compromise." I sat down on the floor, back against the bed, leaving plenty of space between us. I draped the jacket over my knees. "Heat source is me. I'm not going anywhere. You don't have to come closer if you don't want to." That was true. I fully expected her to ignore me until the researchers got bored and opened the door. Instead, she stared at me like I'd just spoken a foreign dialect of stupid. "You would remain?" she asked. "Sure," I said. "I've stayed in worse rooms for less money." Another shiver ran through her, stronger this time. Her ears twitched, then slowly rotated forward. She took one hesitant step toward me, then another. Each movement was cautious, like she expected me to lunge or retreat or do something dramatic. I did neither. I just stayed where I was, breathing normally, trying not to think about how intensely I was being analyzed by someone with much better eyesight than me. She stopped an arm's length away. Her gaze dropped to my chest. Her head tilted. "This is sufficient surface area," she said, more to herself than to me. "Glad I could help," I replied. Before I could process the sentence, she moved. Not fast, not slow, but decisively. She stepped into my space and folded against me, head resting squarely on my chest, ear pressed where it could catch my heartbeat. Her tail wrapped around her legs, and her arms hooked lightly around my torso, like this was the most logical solution in the universe. I froze. Every instinct screamed that this was a misunderstanding of catastrophic proportions. Also, she was very warm, and the shivering stopped almost immediately. Her breathing steadied. Her shoulders relaxed. "Well," I said carefully inside my own head, because speaking felt like a bad idea. "This is happening." I waited for her to pull away. She didn't. I waited for an alarm, a voice, a drone, anything. Nothing happened. Minutes passed. Maybe more. Time gets fuzzy when you're trying not to think about the fact that an alien scientist is using you as furniture. Her ear twitched again. A soft vibration rumbled against my ribs. Not loud. Not aggressive. Just there. I exhaled slowly and adjusted my posture by exactly half an inch so my leg wouldn't fall asleep. She shifted with me, resettling without lifting her head. "Okay," I murmured under my breath. "I guess we're doing this." If the observers were expecting panic, aggression, or anything remotely dramatic, they were going to be disappointed. All that happened was that a human sat still, an alien calmed down, and the universe quietly logged a result no one had prepared for. And somewhere outside that sealed room, a monitor flashed a warning no one understood yet, while inside, the so-called feral foxgirl decided, with absolute biological certainty, that this chest was not to be abandoned. When I woke up, the first thing I noticed was weight. Not the crushing kind. Not uncomfortable. Just present.
Warm.
Anchored. For half a second, my brain tried to convince me this was normal. That I'd fallen asleep on a couch back on Earth, maybe during a blackout, maybe with a cat sprawled across my chest because cats respect nothing. Then my ribs vibrated again, slow and rhythmic, and reality caught up. She was still there. Her head rested exactly where it had been before, ear pressed to my chest, breath steady, tail loosely curled against my side. One arm was draped over my torso in a way that suggested unconscious confidence, like she'd never doubted this was the correct place to be. I stared at the ceiling and did what humans do best in strange situations. I adapted. Carefully, very carefully, I tested my arms. She didn't stir. I shifted my shoulder a fraction of an inch. Nothing. I took a slow breath. Her ear twitched, but she didn't wake. "Okay," I whispered, mostly to myself. "So this is my life now." Time passed. I had no idea how much. There were no clocks, no windows, just the faint hum of systems and the gentle rise and fall of someone who had apparently decided I was a piece of furniture worth claiming. Eventually she stirred. Her eyes opened slowly, unfocused at first, then sharp the moment she realized she wasn't alone. Her ears flicked upright. For one terrifying moment, I thought she was about to leap away, claws out, apologies shouted in 3 languages. Instead, she frowned. Her gaze moved up, down, then settled back on my chest. Her brow furrowed, not in alarm, but confusion. "You did not withdraw," she said. "No," I replied quietly. "Didn't want to wake you." That earned me another long look. Her tail tip twitched, slow and thoughtful. "You remained unconscious beneath me for a full rest cycle," she said. "This was permitted." "Glad I passed," I said. "Is there a badge or something?" She ignored that, shifting slightly, resettling with deliberate care. Her ear pressed more firmly against my chest, like she was recalibrating. "Your cardiac rhythm stabilized my autonomic response," she said. "This should not be possible." "Well," I said, "I've been told I have a calming presence. Usually by people who are panicking." That wasn't a joke. Not entirely. I'd been the one friends called during breakdowns, the guy who stayed up during power outages, the human-shaped proof that things could be bad without being the end of the world. Apparently, that translated well. Her breathing synced with mine. I could feel it happen, subtle but real, like two metronomes finally agreeing. Outside the room, I later learned, alarms were quietly screaming. Inside, I was mostly concerned about my arm going numb. "Hey," I said after a while. "I don't mind, but if you stay there too long, my circulation might file a complaint." She tilted her head without lifting it. "Clarify." "My arm goes tingly, then useless. It's very dramatic." That earned me a soft exhale that might have been amusement. She adjusted again, redistributing her weight with surprising awareness. The tingling eased. "Acceptable," she said. And just like that, it was decided. Hours passed in fragments. Conversation drifted in and out, light and strange, and unexpectedly easy. She asked about humans. Not the grand questions, not war or politics or mating rituals like the researchers love to ask. She wanted to know why humans shared sleeping spaces with non-family members, why we tolerated crowds, why we touched so casually without permission ceremonies. I told her about buses, about siblings sharing rooms, about hospitals and shelters and childhood sleepovers on floors with too many blankets and not enough space. "We get used to it," I said. "Closeness doesn't always mean something. Sometimes it just means you're not alone." Her ear flattened slightly at that. Her grip tightened for half a second before relaxing again. "That distinction does not exist in my species," she said. "Closeness is declaration." "Yeah," I said gently. "I'm starting to get that." She went still. Slowly, she lifted her head just enough to look at my face. Her eyes searched mine, intense and unblinking. "Then why do you allow this?" she asked. The honest answer came easily. "Because you needed it." Her pupils widened. Her tail stilled completely. "That response is inconsistent," she said. "Humans do that a lot." She stared for another long moment, then lowered her head back to my chest. This time, her arms wrapped more fully around me, deliberate, firm. Outside, someone attempted to initiate a separation protocol. Inside, she flinched. Her heart rate spiked. Her breathing hitched. Whatever invisible pressure they applied, she reacted instantly, curling closer, claws flexing against my shirt as if bracing for impact. "Hey," I said, voice steady, hand lifting on instinct to rest lightly between her shoulders. "It's okay. I'm here." That did it. The spike vanished like it had never been. Her body relaxed fully against mine, weight settling, grip tightening in unmistakable refusal. The pressure stopped. I frowned at the ceiling. "You guys done messing around?" No answer, obviously. But I got the sense that something important had just happened. She spoke into my chest, voice muffled but clear. "They attempted removal." I figured. I rejected it. "Well," I said, "that's desertive." "In my culture," she said, "this constitutes confirmation." I blinked. Confirmation of what? She paused. Her tail flicked once, sharp and decisive. Acceptable life partner candidate.
Ah.
There it was. I closed my eyes for a moment, processing that in the same way one processes a surprise tax bill or an unexpected inheritance.
Slowly. Carefully.
With minimal panic. "Okay," I said finally.
"So,
"Just to be clear, this is biology? Not courtship," she said quickly. "Not desire. This is compatibility documentation." "Paperwork," I muttered. "Yes," she agreed, entirely serious. I laughed. I couldn't help it. The sound startled her, but she didn't pull away. If anything, she relaxed further, ear still pressed to my chest like it belonged there. Outside, a room full of experts watched a foxgirl refuse extraction while a human laughed softly beneath her, and every assumption they'd ever made about both species began to collapse. Inside, I accepted a simple truth. Everyone else thought this was scandalous. Biologically speaking, it was just a form that had been stamped, signed, and absolutely refused to be returned. The first official attempt to remove her involved a tone I couldn't hear. I only noticed because her entire body went rigid. Her claws dug lightly into my shirt, not enough to hurt, but enough to tell me this wasn't reflex. This was decision. Her breathing went shallow, ears flattening tight against her head, tail lashing once before curling hard around her legs like a brace. "Hey," I said immediately, lowering my voice without thinking. "It's okay. Whatever that was, it stopped." She didn't answer. Her ear pressed harder against my chest, as if my heartbeat were something she could anchor to physically. I felt her heart racing, fast and uneven, like it was trying to escape her ribcage. The pressure vanished a second later. She exhaled slowly, shuddering once before going still again. "Not a fan of that," I muttered. "They attempted intervention," she said quietly. "A non-consensual proximity severance." "Yeah, that tracks," I said. "Nobody likes being yoinked without warning." Her grip tightened for just a moment, then loosened again. "Your response was corrective." "I talk people down for a living," I lied. What I actually did was stay calm while everyone else lost their minds. Apparently that counted. Minutes later, a voice finally came through the chamber's audio system. Calm, careful, very much trying not to spook a wild animal that was currently using me as a mattress. "Human subject," it said. "Please remain still." "I've been doing a great job of that," I replied. "What's up?" There was a pause. Papers shuffled. I could hear it, faintly, like bureaucracy had weight. "The Vulpyri subject is exhibiting extreme attachment behaviors." "She's stressed," I said. "You keep poking her." "She has formally rejected all extraction protocols." "Well," I said, "that sounds like a strong opinion." Her ear flicked at that. Her tail tightened again just a little, like punctuation. "This situation was not anticipated," the voice continued. "No kidding." Silence stretched. Then, more carefully, "Are you engaging in any form of courtship behavior?" I snorted before I could stop myself. "If this is flirting, I've been doing it wrong my entire life." Her head lifted just enough for her to look at me. Her eyes narrowed, not offended, but curious. "Clarify," she said. "Courtship involves effort," I said. "This is being a pillow." She considered that, then lowered her head again. "An acceptable role." Outside, someone coughed. Another voice whispered something that definitely included the word unprecedented. The audio cut out. "Guess we're on our own again," I murmured. "That is preferable," she said. Time blurred after that. Not because nothing happened, but because nothing dramatic did. She didn't move away. I didn't try to shift her. We existed in a quiet bubble where closeness wasn't a statement, just a condition. Eventually, she spoke again, voice softer than before. "In my species, refusal to separate signifies irreversible selection." "Yeah," I said slowly. "I gathered that." "You do not appear alarmed." "I am," I said. "Just internally." "That is acceptable," she replied. "Your external calm is sufficient." I laughed quietly. "You have very specific standards. They have kept us alive." Another attempt came later. This one was chemical. I didn't smell it. I didn't feel it. But she did. Her muscles locked instantly. Her breathing spiked, sharp and shallow, and a low sound tore from her throat before she could stop it. Not aggressive. Defensive. Fear. Stripped of ceremony. "Hey," I said, one hand lifting to her back, steady and firm. "Focus on me."
In. Out.
Match my breathing. I exaggerated it deliberately. Slow inhale. Slow exhale. She resisted for exactly 2 seconds. Then her breath matched mine. Her heart rate slowed. The tension drained from her frame like water through sand. The chemical attempt ceased. Somewhere beyond the walls, a junior researcher probably stared at their screen in horror. She didn't lift her head this time. Instead, she spoke into my chest, voice rough. "They will not succeed." "Okay," I said. "But maybe we should talk about why." "There is no ambiguity," she said. "You are compatible." "With what?" "With stability," she replied. with proximity, with non-reactive presence. These metrics exceed acceptable thresholds. Exceed, I repeated. That sounds bad. For them, she said. Not for us.
Us.
That word landed heavier than her body ever could. I closed my eyes briefly, letting it settle. So what happens now? There will be review, she said. Reclassification. Debate. And us. She paused. I felt the shift in her weight, subtle but deliberate. Her tail loosened slightly, no longer bracing. I will not disengage, she said. Well, I said, neither will my circulation, so I guess we're aligned. That earned me a soft huff of something very close to amusement. Hours later, the system chimed again. This time, the tone was different. Lower. Resigned. A new voice spoke, younger, nervous. Human subject, you are now classified as an emotional stabilization vector. That sounds like a job title, I said. Does it come with a raise? Silence. The Volpyri subject, the voice continued, has been reclassified as bonded. Her arms tightened around me, firm and absolute. No, she corrected calmly. I have always been bonded. You were simply the missing variable. The line went dead. I stared at the ceiling, heart steady, breathing slow. An alien curled against me like this was the safest place in the universe. Somewhere outside, an entire research program collapsed under the weight of one simple, horrifying discovery. Humans didn't conquer through force. They endured. And sometimes, that was enough to make the galaxy very, very uncomfortable. They stopped trying to remove her after that. Not because they suddenly understood what was happening, but because every attempt made the data worse. Stress spikes. Instability. Feedback loops they didn't have models for. Every variable they tweaked pushed the same result. She stayed. I stayed. The system logged compliance, not as an action, but as a state. Eventually, the audio came back on, careful and formal, like someone speaking to a live explosive that had already decided not to detonate. Human subject, the voice said, did you consent to continued participation? I looked down at her. She wasn't asleep, not fully. One eye cracked open, watching me, ears angled forward just enough to catch every word. Her grip hadn't loosened since the last attempt. If anything, she'd settled more completely, weight distributed with the confidence of someone who expected gravity to keep cooperating. I'm fine, I said, but you should ask her. A pause. Then, Volpyri subject, do you consent to continued containment? Her answer was immediate. This is not containment. The silence that followed was thick enough to chew. Clarify, the voice said. This is residence, she replied, with approved stabilizer. I snorted. I really hope that's not my official title. It is, she said, without hesitation. The line went dead again. Time passed differently after that. Not in the dramatic sense. No countdowns, no alarms. Just long stretches of calm punctuated by short conversations and the occasional system check that everyone pretended wasn't happening. Food arrived through a slot. Better food, actually. Someone upgraded my rations without comment. I chose not to ask questions that might be answered with forms. She ate curled against me, careful, methodical. Every so often, her ear would flick, adjusting to my heartbeat like it was background noise she preferred over silence. When I shifted, she shifted. When I slept, she slept. When I woke, she was already aware. You do this naturally, she said at one point. Do what? Remain, she said. Without pressure. Without expectation. I thought about that. About all the times I'd waited things out because reacting felt worse. About crowded rooms and shared spaces and uncomfortable silences that didn't need filling. About how humans learned early that proximity wasn't always a threat. Guess we're built for it, I said. She hummed softly, thoughtful. Your species is poorly understood. Tell me about it. The announcement came quietly. No alarms. No fanfare. Just a system message projected onto the wall in neutral text. Interspecies research notice. Human proximity tolerance exceeds predictive models. I read it aloud. That sounds flattering. It is alarming, she corrected.
To them.
Over the next hours, voices returned. Different ones.
Softer.
Less certain. Questions replaced commands. How long has physical contact been maintained? Continuous, I answered. Is there discomfort?
No.
Is there arousal? I stared at the ceiling.
No.
Her tail flicked once sharp. This is not that. The question never came back. Instead, someone finally asked the right thing. Human subject. Why did you not disengage? I didn't answer right away. Not because I didn't know, but because the answer felt too simple for the roomful of minds on the other side of the wall. Because leaving felt worse, I said eventually. She needed stability. I had some to spare. That did more damage than anything else I could have said. Classifications changed after that. Quietly. Efficiently. Humans were removed from the risk category and placed somewhere entirely new. Emotional anchors. Stabilization vectors. Proximity-compatible species. A footnote mentioned unusually high tolerance for enforced closeness without escalation. I was offered release. I didn't take it. Not because I was trapped. Not because I was obligated. But because when I mentioned it, her heart rate spiked just enough to tell me the question mattered. Later, I said. When you're ready. She nodded once and settled back against me, satisfied. That was when I understood the real problem. Everyone else thought this was intimate. To them, chest contact meant vulnerability, meant exposure, meant a declaration of desire or dominance or both. They saw closeness and assumed heat. For her species, it meant documentation. A biological checkbox that read, acceptable long-term proximity partner. Low threat. High stability. Approved for continued existence within personal space. For humans? It meant someone didn't have to be alone. The final report came hours later. A human bureaucrat read it aloud, voice strained like he was trying not to laugh or panic. Conclusion: Vulpyri bonding rituals were misinterpreted as courtship. Human response indicates non-sexual proximity endurance. Recommendation: update all interspecies interaction manuals immediately. There was a beat. Addendum, he continued. The fox girl refuses reassignment. Her arms tightened around me in confirmation. And the human? Another voice asked. I'm not refusing anything, I said. I just haven't finished sitting yet. That broke something. I heard it in the exhale on the other end. Relief mixed with resignation. Understood, the voice said. You are both cleared for continued cohabitation. The system lights dimmed slightly. The hum softened. Whatever emergency mode we'd been in finally powered down. She relaxed fully for the first time since I'd met her. Not just physically, but emotionally. I could feel it, subtle but real, like tension leaving a room after a storm passes. This is acceptable, she said. High praise, I replied. Her tail flicked lazily. You may remain. I was planning on it. She closed her eyes, ears still pressed to my chest, breathing slow and even. I stared up at the ceiling, thinking about how an entire galaxy had panicked over something humans did every day without thinking. They thought it was scandalous. They thought it was dangerous. They thought it was desire. Turns out it was compatibility. And all it took to prove it was a human who didn't pull away and a fox girl who finally decided that this chest, of all the places in the universe, was the safest one to sleep on.